Okay. Shalom Aleichem to everybody. I didn't get to greet everyone personally earlier, so thank you all for coming. It's great to see everyone here. Some familiar faces, some new faces, and it's always nice to meet new people and see everybody coming out who's interested in this subject, which, as mentioned earlier by Rabbi Moskowitz, is really part of a greater initiative that we've had over the last couple of years, together with the law firm of Stachon and Braverman, to expand and bring more awareness of halachic issues and in the business place and the challenges that arise. So the first thing to know is what Rabbi Shoshan mentioned is the opportunities that we have to Mekadosh Shem Shemayim and to really do the right thing in business and use our business as not just time off, but use it as a spiritual endeavor. So I wanted to highlight specific places or specific areas that may present a specific type of challenge and show a little bit what the Torah has to say about it and how these challenges may come up in your daily life, whether it's in business or even personal. And the tremendous, on the one hand, nisayon, the challenge that it presents, but also the tremendous opportunity that we can have when we come out on top and we come out on the right side of that challenge. So, when it comes to challenges, the greatest challenge that we know of in the Torah and really in history is given to us as an example of a greatest challenge. Is the challenge of Yosef when he was in the house of Eshes of Potiphar, and he was challenged. He was faced with the nisayon. He was secluded with his wife, and the question of what would happen at that point, and he chose to run away. And this is considered one of the greatest challenges of history, to the point that Kriyas Yamsuf itself, the splitting of the Yamsuf, the Gemara says, was in the schus of this Kriyas Yamsuf of Yosef, Vayanas v'yetzeh achutza, of Yosef running out. And what was so impressive and what was so great about that particular challenge? And the answer is because Yosef was alone in a foreign place. No one knew who he was. No one really cared about what he would do. And literally no one would know the difference. And nobody would care. And it was just about him and himself. And a lot of times there's other pressures, there's other reasons that we may do things. But here, none of that happened. None of that existed. It was just Yosef by himself. And he wouldn't disappoint anybody. He wouldn't embarrass himself. So the challenge of Yosef to rise above and to say, even if nobody will know the difference, and I'm the only one that will know, I want to do the right thing, that presents the greatest challenge that we could ever be faced with. And there are times when in our business, we're faced with a very similar challenge. There's certain things that go on, and I've mentioned some of these in different shiurim over the course of time, so I may be picking out examples that some of you have been at different events have heard, but it's about the halach and it's also about the chizuk. So, we'll if I'm repeating, I apologize, but I see a lot of new faces here as well. But there are a lot of examples, a lot of cases, and a lot of times where the only person that will know what's going on is you yourself. I'm reporting this income this way. I'm fudging a number this way. I'm doing something with this intention, but it's not really that. I'm not really, we really have fewer people in the building, fewer units rented out, or our numbers don't really match, but who's going to know? I'm the only one counting. No one really knows the difference. And there are so many times where the challenge that of Yosef at Tzaddik, we're sitting alone in front of our computer, and the question just is, I could save a lot of money. All I have to do is just say this or say that, and write a number in this way or write it in that way, and nobody will know the difference, and no one actually thinks they're going to get caught. So, which is a big mistake in and of itself, but we'll leave that for a different time. And all right, so what's going to happen? And the answer is that that's the nisayon of Yosef HaTzadik, and that's the nisayon that we may face on a daily basis and so many times. And when a person will lift themselves up over that challenge that we face, and the opportunity to rise above that is like Rabbi Shosha mentioned, will not occur while we're davening and other places. This only occurs when we're in our business setting, we're doing something, and that's the nisayon that we're faced with. So let me just give a few examples. I don't want to keep everyone for too long, but I'll give a few examples. As they say in the Gemara, "Ten l'chacham v'yachkam oid." You'll see from the examples different scenarios, and I'm using these examples. We've gotten feedback in the past that I've noticed when giving these types of shiurim that there's in the people listening, I get two reactions. Some people say, "Oh, that's obvious. That's pashut." Well, what are you even saying? And some people are like, "How could that be? That's definitely not the case." So there's like a big range of how people view these issues. Like sometimes it's so obvious, and sometimes it's like, "No, what's wrong with that?" So let's just go through a little list. So the background of the concept that I want to discuss is a concept called Genevas Das, which Geneva we understand to mean stealing. Genevas das is an interesting term. It's stealing one's das. What does that mean? It means misleading someone and making them believe something to be true when it's really not the case. And that's called Genevas das, when you're misleading someone purposely. This Genevas das, according to many Rishonim, is an Isra Mid'Oraisa. It's from the Torah itself. It's not a rabbinical prohibition. It's also from the Torah itself. And the nature of the prohibition, some say it's actually like stealing, and some say it's more like midvar sheker tirchak. It's you're approaching lying or not saying the truth, and therefore it's more like an emes or sheker type of sugya. In Genevas Das, there are two basic breakdowns. There's some cases that don't affect anybody's money. It doesn't, but you're misleading them in a way. You're not actually taking away their money. You're not affecting their bottom line, but you've tricked them. That's one level. And then there's a level where you actually are going to be affecting their pocket, and you're going to be misleading them to a point that they're going to be spending money or losing money on your account, and that could be really stealing itself. So when you're talking about non-monetary Genevas Das, you could have simple cases like social cases where, you've had this neighbor that moved in a couple months ago, and you're like really like not so interested in being super friendly, and you say, I really should be having them for a meal and I should invite them over, but like I'm not so interested, and you find out that they're going away for Pesach, so it's a perfect opportunity. You call them up, "Oh, would you come over for any meal over Pesach? We'd love to have you," and they're not around, so you yotze, but you knew the whole time that they weren't going to come. Right? Or you hear this guy's out of town, so you invite him over for your bar mitzvah. He's not going to come anyway, but this way you score points with him and stuff like that. So those are like social examples. A lot of cases like that where there's the Genevas Das. But when it comes to business, you have these types of cases as well. So for example, a false advertising. Or advertising doesn't really give the full picture. So there's a big sale going on. It's buy one, get one free. Now, it's buy one, get one free starting Sunday. Now, Wednesday, the week before, they surprisingly raise up all the prices to double the price. So now, it's all double the price, or let's say they raise it up 30% or something. So now, they raise the prices, and now you come in on Sunday, so you think you're getting this great deal, buy one, get one free. Now, there's no stealing going on, because the price is clear, and that's okay. He's paying the price that it says. He's choosing to pay it, and that's fine. There's no Geneva there, but you're misleading him. He walks away thinking that he got 2 suits for the price of 1, and meanwhile, he got 2 suits for the price of 2, because you really just raised the price. So is that anything wrong with that? I mean, he's coming in on his own. He's paying the price that it says on the ticket. You're not tricking him, but you're misleading him to think that he's getting this great deal, when really he's not getting a great deal at all. And so we would say that's in the first category, where you haven't really stolen from them, but you've tricked them and misled them and made them feel like they're getting this great deal when they're really not. A very common example of this will be a person that provides a service, whether it's a contractor or business consulting, building websites, all sorts of different areas. accounting, etc. It never happens with attorneys, so we'll leave that. But any service that you're providing, right? And a person comes in and they want to give, and you know, they're bidding out the project. So the person comes in, let's say the contractor, for argument's sake, will come in and purposely lowball the estimate. So he says, listen, I can get it to you for this. In the meanwhile, once he gets the contract, he's going to come in, oh, listen, tariffs, this, that. Sorry, I can't, the price is not shaykh, you know, and it's not going to be that price. I'm going to have to change it up a little bit, but meanwhile, I got the contract. So he never had an intention to be able to provide it at the cost that he had mentioned originally. And you could say, well, okay, I mean, he's not overcharging. He's going to charge in the end exactly what it costs. So is he doing anything wrong? Is he stealing? Well, he got the job by misleading the person to thinking that he's the cheapest guy, when really he's not. And therefore, it could be that it's Genevas Das. Now there is another example, and that's pretty common. That's pretty common when people will come and they never really had an intention to give it with the price that they said, and they're just lowballing it to get the job. A broker that can happen with a broker as well. A broker, someone looking for a broker to sell their house, and one broker comes in and says, "Oh, that I can definitely get you X, right? I can get you $2 million for that house. The way the market is, you go with me, I'll get you $2 million." He gets the contract, he's putting it out for sale, the bids are coming in at 1.2. You know, listen, the market's not what it used to be, I can't really get you that, but it's the same thing. He knew that he wasn't going to be able to get him that, so he's not taking away or stealing money, but he's misrepresenting what he can do in order to get the contract, and that's dishonest. There's a very interesting meiri when it comes to, like, I don't want to even call it window shopping or something like that. When you go into a store with no intention to buy, or what could happen sometimes is that let's give this for an example. It could happen with selling a house, but it could happen with a service. So let's just take a simple example. I want to repaint my house, and you know, my brother-in-law calls me up, and from New York, and he says, "Listen, I have a nephew that just moved in, and he's starting up a painting business. Can you hire him for your paint job? Pay him whatever it costs. You know, he doesn't know the market. Pay him whatever it costs. He'll match any price you get, but I would like for him to get the experience." Okay, I would love to do that. No problem. So I call over one guy, and I ask him, can you give me a bid on the paint job? And in the meanwhile, I have no intention of hiring this guy, because I know at the get-go that I'm going to be hiring my brother-in-law's nephew, whatever, right? So I know in the get-go that I'm not going to be hiring the person. I just call up a painter. I say, "Hey, come in. Can you give me an estimate?" So the problem with that is twofold. The problem with that is, number one, you would say it's Genevas Das, because you're making him feel that he had a chance at getting the job, giving a bid, and he had no havamina, there was no chance of him getting the job, because you already knew at the get-go you weren't going to hire him. So you made him feel bad, you misrepresented the truth, and you wasted his time. So all that goes into Genevas Das. But the Meiri actually says something very interesting. He says there's also an aspect of Genevas Mamon over here. It's not just Genevas Das, it's actually real Geneva over here. Why? Because he's going to think to himself, look, I explained that the job is going to cost, when he came to give the bid, he said the job is going to cost $2,500. And then you call him back and you say, well, listen, it's not going to work for me. So why not? Well, you know, you're going to have to say something. You're probably going to say, well, it's too expensive, right? So now next job that he's going to go bid, he's going to go bid it at $2,000 because he thinks $2,500 is too much. No one wants to pay that. In the meanwhile, it was really a good price. And in fact, your brother-in-law's nephew that you're hiring, you're actually paying him the $2,500 because now that you got a bid, he said that's the price, so you're paying. So in the meanwhile, you're causing this other fellow, this other painter, not just agmas nefesh and a waste of time. It could be you mamash were mazakim. It could be you literally stole money from him because you caused him now to think that he's too expensive. What's the Meiri says? And the same thing goes, by the way, with selling. Some people would sometimes a lot of people put up their property for sale, with no intention to sell it. They just kind of want to feel out the market. I'm not sure what they're feeling exactly, but they want to feel out the market, what it's worth, what my house is worth. Or maybe because they already know that brother-in-law's nephew already was painting for a while, now he wants to buy a house. So you're going to sell it to that guy, but you want to know what the price is. So a potential buyer comes in, he makes an offer, $1 million for the house. And you call him back, he says, I'm not taking the offer. And meanwhile, you sold it to the other guy for $1 million. But the guy that came in, the buyer, thinks, why didn't he get it? Because his bid wasn't a good bid. Next house he goes to, he's going to have to bid 1.1 because he's going to think that his $1 million wasn't enough. So it goes on both ends. It goes on the buyer and the seller. This is the Meiri's Chiddush in Bava Metzia in the end of the fourth parak. He explains that every Genevas Das in these types of cases could borderline on Genevas moments. And this is something to keep in mind, is that sometimes we think, listen, what's the big deal? I'm not stealing from him. I'm not doing anything. I'm just playing the game, and everything is yashar. There's no transfer of money. There's nothing wrong. But there could be a real issa deraisa of doing these types of things. And if you really think about it, there's a lack of integrity when engaging in that type of process. It goes without saying, I think, even though, like I said, this one people tend to think that it's not obvious. So I'll throw it out there, and you could tell me, the crowd could tell me what they think. But it's common practice that a person will hire people or have people from their own staff write consumer reviews on Google or on Amazon for their own product. So that's l'cha'ira pashut, that's Genevas Das. Because the point of a consumer review, unless you'll tell me no one takes those things seriously in the first place, but if no one takes them seriously, why are you hiring someone to write it?
What if you give them the product? What if you give them the product? You give them the product and you say, okay, write a review on this product. Can I do that?
No, if you give them the product, but it's going to be an honest review.
They didn't buy the product, but I gave it to them.
No, okay, but I think you have to write an honest review.
And then I tell them to write the review, but obviously they didn't give me a good review. They're my friends, and I gave them a free product.
An honest 5-star review.
An honest 5-star review, exactly. And right after they finish the review, they give it back to you, right? So then you could give it on to the next guy. It's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine, not about this. I spoke about this similar topic in a different place about 3 months ago, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said, "Are you going to come to the conference? We're talking about these types of things." He said, "No, what am I going to hear already? I know all this stuff." So I said, "Okay, fine. I hear what you're saying." He said, "What are you speaking about? Give me one example of what you're saying." So I said, "I don't know. I'm going to mention something about false advertising, about putting on a Google review on your own product." He's like, "Yeah, what's wrong? What do you mean? What's wrong with that?" So I said, "Well, it's a consumer review, not an owner review. I mean, it's saying what it's saying." He said, "Really?" I said, I think that's pretty obvious." And I was going through it with him. He's like, "1 second." He pulls up. He says, "Yeah, I wrote this one. I wrote this one. I wrote this one." So it was this. It takes a little bit, and one thing I remember at the H3 conference, which is a conference about these inyanim, Reb Zev Cohen said that he said one thing that you shouldn't say is, well, everyone's doing it, because when everyone's doing it is not really an answer for these types of things. There's no minig amokum on Geneva, so you can't. Well, everyone's doing it is not an answer. Baruch.
So I guess to come back to what you just said, everyone's doing it. Everybody understands that the way realtors work is they come and they lie to you about. It's just what they do. They all do it. It's standard practice, right? It's like you can't walk into Home Depot and say it's a 2x4, but it's 3.5 by 1 3/4. That's how it is. Realtors lie. I'm just saying. They all promise.
Is anyone here insulted by that comment?
They all promise you. Everybody knows that, right? Like reviews, Amazon has a whole system in place that they claim uses AI to try and scan for fake reviews. Everybody knows that people do it. It's like Puffer. Right?
So here's I think a good klal.
That's the minig in the market. Everybody knows when a guy comes and says, "I get you this much for your house." I mean, you'd be an idiot to believe it, right? Like a reasonable person understands what this guy's doing. Is that still the same thing?
Well, Lamaisa at the end, if the way you hire a realtor is based on the personality, there's a nice guy, not a nice guy, then do that. But at the end, somehow what they're saying works, right? So somehow, if two realtors both are lying, but this one lied this much, it's somehow going to convince you. So there's something about what they're saying. There's got to be some value in what they're saying that's convincing to some degree. So I don't know. I mean, if a person's going to be totally honest, and they're going to say, well, if I'm totally honest, how am I going to get the job? Sometimes an honest reputation will also get you the job.
The stronger side is, let's say I'm an attorney, for example. An attorney has a client, the attorney has a fee per hour, no offense to attorneys. But everybody wants to humble their attorney or their professional. So the attorney, if he doesn't start at $1,000 an hour, and he knows you're not going to walk away feeling like you got a deal, I'm not going to steal from you, but I start here because there are...
Okay, that's different. If there's room for negotiation, then it's understood to be like that. So... No, I don't think so. I don't think so because you're not claiming that it's a good deal. You're just saying there's the price. When you're saying 2 for 1, you're saying it's a good deal. That's what you're saying. You're saying there's a unique opportunity. You start at a higher price. I'll das to negotiate, especially if you're, depending on who your clientele is, right? So if your clientele is the type of people that would negotiate, so, I don't think there you're coming off lechatchila saying this is a great deal, right? That's not the point of what you're saying. So I don't think that's a problem. The problem is more when you're indicating this is a great deal and it's not. That's what I'm saying. So those are all examples, by the way, of the first level, where there's genevas das when you're not losing money. Let's go to the next case, where there's actually genevas das when you may be actually stealing money in kind of delicate ways. Let's give a few examples. Just give 2 examples, and the time's short, so let's give 2 examples. These 2 examples I heard from, and I reviewed it with Rav Dov Khan, who's the Av Bezdin of Bezdin Mesharm in Lakewood, and he paskins on these examples. So I'll push off any questions to him if people don't like it. But number 1 is in general, when a company of any sort has rules, then they have the right to have their rules. And you can't say, well, that rule doesn't make sense to me, and therefore I don't, right? So when Home Depot has a rule, let's say, that there's a contractor discount, right? So your contractor is going off to Home Depot, and you tell him, oh, by the way, can you get me, you're doing a job for me, you're going to buy the 2x4s or the 1.5 by whatever's, right? So you're going to buy the materials for the job. Oh, by the way, I need an extra drill for myself. Can you buy me that on your contractor discount? Or more so, let's say you borrow their contractor discount card and go yourself and buy stuff, right? Or Costco. You have to be a member at Costco, but you borrow someone else's membership to go. So if it says over there that it's not transferable, then you're now getting a deal from them. You're getting a discount or a break for something that you don't deserve because you don't fit the criteria for that discount. And you'll say, well, they don't really care. So on this, Rabbi Khan has a very important rule of thumb that if you walk away with this rule of thumb from today, it will be it will be a successful event. The rule of thumb is, are you willing, and this is what I think the answer to your question is a little bit also. The rule of thumb is, are you willing to disclose what you're doing? And if you're willing to disclose and you say, well, they don't really care. Well, if they don't care, so tell them, I'm not really a contractor. I just schnorred this contractor card from my neighbor. Do you mind? So if they'll say, yeah, listen, you have the card, it's fine, I don't care. So then fine, but why? Most people aren't going to be willing to disclose that, right? Because they don't think that they really agree. Well, that means that they don't agree. So if you're not willing to disclose it, it's usually a good siman that what you're doing is not honest. So therefore, if you go to Costco and you say, well, I'm not really a member, but my neighbor is, and we get along very nicely, and they come over for Shabbos a lot, so that counts, kind of thing. So if Costco is going to agree to that, then fine. The question is, are you willing to disclose it, which would be a good siman if it's honest or not. And if you're not comfortable disclosing it, then it's probably not an honest practice. And that's number 1. Now this Isser is an Isser of either Genevas das or Mate Akum, which you're stealing in this way from a goy, because you're getting something which you don't have a right to receive. You're getting a benefit that you don't have a right to, and it could be not just dishonest, but it could be stealing as well. Another example with a broker could be that anytime you hire a broker, this time the broker already got the job. So we're on to the next step. So we can go the whole share just on brokers. But the broker is hired to represent, in this case, let's say the seller. Now, they come, and this actually was a shiloh. Someone asked me that they had two potential buyers, but they liked one of the buyers more, or they felt there was an outside reason why this buyer should get the house. I know this buyer needs it more, they felt that it's their friend, whatever it was. But as far as the seller is concerned, that they're representing the seller can get more money from the other buyer. So when the broker does not act, that's a fiduciary duty, to act in the best interest of the person who hired you, of the seller. If you're not doing that and you put in a little bit of your own interest in mind, I think it's obvious. So that's Geneva, because now your salary, the money that you got, is Shaloi Kedin, because you didn't represent the seller in that way. So Rabbi Kahn mentioned, I think it was a year ago, at a similar event. A few of the people here were there, but what he mentioned was, in a similar vein, is when people in a certain industry get kickbacks. So what happens is, the way he explained it was, I'll just give his example, and his example was, in the case of an interior designer, for example, you hire someone to be the interior designer of your home, and they're supposed to go and design for you which tile to use and which furniture to get, and bring you at the best price. And what happens is that they have a deal with that furniture store that if they bring clients, whatever they themselves, the designer will get a 10% kickback. So in the meanwhile, the same couch, or maybe even one that matches your whole design scheme, even better, is on sale at one store, and you could save a few $1,000s on buying the furniture there, but they'll bring you to the more expensive one, claiming that this is exactly what you need, right? And there's going to be trauma to your children if you don't get that couch, because they're going to come confused because it's not going to match the carpet color or whatever. So they convinced you of that, and the only reason they convinced you of that is because really they're getting a kickback. So what he said was, aside that they tricked you and you lost money, all the money you paid them to be your designer could be Geneva, because now they're not acting in your best interest. So this happens in many industries. As he said, he chose to speak about designers because probably no one in this room is an interior designer. He said, so that's what he said. So he said that when he goes, when he mentioned this to some of the interior designers, so the lady says to him, she says, like Baruch said, everyone knows this is the way it is. So he said, if everyone, fine, no problem, if everyone knows what it is, so disclose it. Say, I'm going to be limited to giving you advice and where to buy from these 3 stores because I have a relationship with them. No, I can't disclose that. They're going to think it's not fair. So obviously not everyone knows it, right? So, again, if you take that rule of thumb into account, you'll be in good shape. If you're not willing to disclose it, it may be a good siman that it's not honest. So these are just a few examples, like I said, but there's so many examples when a person's there and the intention nobody knows except for yourself. That's what we started off with. When you're in a situation that nobody knows your intentions, no one really knows what's going on. These are very delicate. Every example that we gave is extremely delicate. What do I really mean? I really thought that I could give them the higher price. I really did think I could do it, right? So the only one that really knows is yourself. And that's the nisayon that we have. What happens when a person is oimid bin nisayon? So on that we have a Rambam at the end of Hilchas Schiras. Very powerful Rambam. Of the Avos, the Av that was the most wealthy was Yaakov Avinu. He was extremely wealthy. There's a Rambam that actually says what was the suchus of Yaakov to get wealthy. We're all looking for segulas all the time, right? It says in the Rambam, he's supposed to be honest as an employee. He's talking here. He says that Yaakov Avinu worked honestly with Lavan, lafikach, and since he was honest, not al schar zois af ba'olam hazeh. He received his reward of being wealthy. Shenemar vayifrod sa'ish me'oid me'oid. He received his wealth because he was honest. That's what the Rambam says. I found a source for the Rambam. The Rambam usually writes things with the source. What's the source of this Rambam? How did the Rambam know? There's no medrash or anything. That Yaakov Avinu became wealthy because he was honest. So the Maharsha says, there's a Gemara in Sanhedrin. It says like this, Amar Rav says, Mereish hava amino leka kushta ba'alma. I originally thought that there was no people that were left that were honest in this world. Amar liyahu merabanan, Rav Tavis Mei, Rav Tavis told me, and some say his name was Rav Tav, you mean the Yavi le kol chaloli da'alma lav mishane b'dibure. That even if you would give me all the wealth in the world, I wouldn't mishane b'dibure, I wouldn't change, I wouldn't lie. So Rav Tavis was extremely honest. And then he say a story where he came into a city and something happened, but it says that Rav Tavis, no matter what, even if you give him all the money in the world, he wouldn't lie. So the Maharsha says, what's he trying to say with that? What's his kol chaloli da'alma, all the money in the world? See, the Maharsha says unbelievable. He says, Yaakov Avinu, Rambam says, Yaakov Avinu received his money, his schar, because he was honest. What's Yaakov Avinu's schar? We say in the Zmiris on Shabbos, Nachla b'li mitzarim. Yaakov Avinu was zeichet to a nachla b'li mitzarim. What he got was endless. It was not even, you couldn't even count it, it was endless. So says the Maharsha, by being honest, you have siyata d'shmaya. By being honest, Hashem will give you, and then there's no end to it. But if you're not being honest, then you're taking it into your own hands. Then you'll make money, whatever your chachma can bring you. But it's limited to whatever you can get. But when you're honest, then you're unlimited, because then you can get what Hashem gives you. So Yaakov, that's what the Gemara is saying. The Gemara is saying that Rav Tavis wouldn't lie, even if you get all the money in the world. You know why? Because by being honest, he can get more than the money in the world. So if he lies, he can get all the money in the world. But if he's dishonest, he can get even more than that. He can get the money it's not bound by this world. So these are the nisyonis that we face on a daily basis. If we could be oived bin nisayon, and we stand up for the challenge. And remember that no matter where we are, we're bringing the base medrash with us, like Rabbi Shoshan mentioned, and we can uplift ourselves in our business. We can uplift ourselves through these challenges. Then in Mitzvah Hashem, everything we do in our life will be a Kiddush Hashem as we proceed throughout our day. Every part of it is going to be a Kiddush Hashem. And in Mitzvah Hashem, this event and others like it can help us get together and mechazik one another in these areas. There are many ongoing events and ongoing programs that we run. There's a chat, there's a website for this initiative to keep updated on different opportunities to be involved, and you can speak to Rabbi Parsons or check out the website or whatever it is. We will send up a follow-up email if anyone wants to be more involved moving forward. But these are our opportunities to be able to continue and grow in every opportunity that we have. And it's nice to see you all come out today. Nice to see everybody. Thank you again to the shul for hosting, and thank you for our sponsors.